weather and always us.
What was once a prosperous city in Oklahoma was diminished to nothing more than bricks and rubbish. Fire and riots sparked throughout the 36 blocks of the Greenwood district. The Tulsa Race Massacre was known as one of the deadliest against African Americans in history.
On that fateful day, my grandparents, along with their 2-year-old daughter, family members and friends, ran for their lives from the Greenwood neighborhood, only to return to find our homes and our businesses looted and burned to the ground.
Those that were in the Klan, that were in very prominent positions, from the Chamber of Commerce to the mayor to every facet of the agencies that ran Tulsa at that time, wanted to cover this up.
Vernon AME was mostly destroyed with the exception of its basement. Mount Zion Baptist Church was completely destroyed.
Klan, Tate Brady and his group wanted to take Greenwood down because it was such a prosperous area and we had so many black, and that money turned over in the hands of Afro-Americans 7 times before it left the community, and that was an insult to the Caucasians, so they said we must get rid of that.
See, if you listen to the business folk and you listen to mean white folk that don't want to tell you the truth, they won't want you to think that black folk earned that kind of capital, especially in the 1920s.
They blamed this on the black community. They called it a Negro uprising. They labeled it a riot. And then they tried to destroy any evidence of it even happening.
This was a terrorist event against individuals, and we have heard and know there's possibly up to 300 black lives lost, and we still can't find a tombstone. That's embarrassing today.
Never in America's history have we bombed our own citizens, and they were citizens of Tulsa.
A solid community with majority black-owned businesses, with prosperity and optimism in near sight. Blacks were able to flourish within the 1920s due to their personal wealth and fortunes that they acquired. Phil Armstrong, the director of Greenwood Rising Cultural Center, gave some invaluable perspective and insight that further speaks of the quality of the Greenwood district. Phil Armstrong is a graduate from Central State University, a historically black college in Wilberforce, Ohio. While there, he remembers a certain college professor who spent an entire semester explaining the significant and pivotal roles that blacks played within the territory of Oklahoma at the turn of the century.
And it was about what Oklahoma became for black citizens. And it's an incredible, incredible history of black achievement that is not in our history books. And we spent an entire semester on it and studied also what happened and what led up to what it was called then the 1921 Tulsa Race Riot.
Anthony Scott and I serve as senior pastor, lead pastor of the historic First Baptist Church, North Tulsa. Been here for 13 years, actually 13 years this next month. First Baptist Church, North Tulsa was founded in 1899. We are the oldest African-American congregation here in the city. I first learned of Black Wall Street when I was in high school. When you talk to many people, they kind of say it was a story that was swept under the rug, and it was. But my black history teacher in high school, Eddie Faye Gates, actually was a part of the original Race Riot Commission that was set by the state of Oklahoma. She was the one that interviewed many of the living survivors. So when you see recordings of survivors, she did that. She wrote a book on Black Wall Street, but long story short, when I was her student in high school in black history, she made sure we knew about Black Wall Street.
My name is Brenda Nails Alford. I grew up here in Tulsa in the Greenwood district. My grandparents, James and Vassonor Nails Sr., along with my great-uncle Henry Nails, were the proud owners of the Nails Brothers Shoe Shop and Record Shop that was located at 121 North Greenwood Avenue at various locations throughout the community.
James Vassonor Sr. and Henry Nails were the first owners of what is now Lacey Park, wherein the Nails Dance Pavilion and skating rink was located. There now exists a mural located in Lacey Park. They also owned a limousine and taxi service that serviced the Greenwood district.
We'll ignore that phone call and hope they'd go away.
Yeah, because I don't know if that's going to be in the shot. Okay.
Is it going to be in there? You want to hold on? Let me just answer.
Yeah, go ahead, Doc, if you don't mind. Yeah, I'm sorry.
You try to hang up before I do it. I'm Willie Sells of the Cheese Barbershop, 120 North Greenwood, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Owned and operated. Our barbershop has existed in the Greenwood district, which is known as Black Wall Street. This location since 1985. Black Wall Street existed here in Tulsa, Oklahoma because they had businesses like several hundred businesses in this area. And I know they had just around the corner was Small Hotel, which was, I understand it was black owned. We had a black bank in this area that black folk banked here. And they tell me that the bank did well, so well that other banks in the area was borrowing from the Black Wall Street. And they also tell me that the finances in this area turned over 6 or 7 times before it left. See, if you wanted to, whatever you wanted to buy, if you needed a pair of shoes, you could buy them in here.
My name is Kevin Matthews. I'm currently Oklahoma State Senator for the state of Oklahoma, Senate District 11. Black Wall Street of America. It was one of the most prosperous business districts in the United States. This area, where we're only about 13 to 15% black, had 31 grocery stores, 21 restaurants, 2 hotels, 2 movie theaters that were black owned. And back in 1921, 100 years ago, 6 black people had airplanes here.
I am the great-granddaughter of Harriet and Howard Ector, and I am the granddaughter of Eldoris McConaughey. She was the sweetest, kindest, most passionate, affected. She always wanted to know why you didn't call earlier, and our tradition, because our parents, my mother's family was from the country, and my father's family, which is the McConaughey's, were from Tulsa. And so I had the city mouse, country mouse type thing going on. So before we went to the country, we would always go to Grandma's. Every Sunday we went to church here, Grandma's, and Grandma was very elegant.
Well, Black Wall Street actually came about, obviously during the 1800s, when unfortunately many of our ancestors who were enslaved in really the southeastern part of the United States, Florida, they came along on the Trail of Tears with Native Americans as slaves, came to Oklahoma, which became Indian Territory, and that's how many of our people came here. Black Wall Street actually came about as they were emancipated really from Indian enslavement. They were given certain allotments of land for their freedom, and that's how our people really came to have Black Wall Street in their possession.
Black Wall Street, and that term is a coined phrase that has been popularized probably in the last 20 to 30 years. And a lot of people don't realize Black Wall Street, that term actually came from Booker T. Washington when he visited Oklahoma for the first time in 1905.
Greenwood did not get its start until 1906, followed by the statehood of Oklahoma in 1907. What exactly did Booker T. Washington see when he came to Oklahoma? Washington saw all of these historic black towns and achievements. Washington went through all of the towns like Taft, Redbud, Boley, Ocmulgee, and Langston. Washington stood there and stated, "This is like living in Negro Wall Street."
Well, what was very interesting is that they were able to use their resources to build really a self-sufficient community at a time when it really should have been just economically and humanly impossible, for them to do. They were able to build their own schools, their own businesses, their own hospitals, their own homes. They just had their own self-sufficient community and economy in and of itself. And something that I found very interesting just in the study of the history, there are estimates that the per capita income that was generated actually during that time on Black Wall Street actually was higher than what was in Harlem.
I believe the fact that they worked here together, they pooled their finances together, even though they went out. I think black women and men, they went out to other areas of this city. They earned money, but when they earned their money, they brought it back and they lived in this area and they spent money in the area. Earlier I told you they turned money over 6 or 7 times, it was said to be.
There was not only a hotel, but law offices, doctor's offices, barber shops, beauty shops, pool halls, and dance halls.
Our family and community members were very successful, very entrepreneur-minded people because they had to be. They weren't welcome in other communities to buy food, buy clothing of the sort, so they did it themselves.
Simon Berry, who had a transportation company, was so wealthy that he donated a park to the city of Tulsa. So Black Wall Street was called that because of the commerce and the business and the fact that the money turned around in this community, some say up to 32 times.
While attending Wilberforce University, Phil Armstrong gained great insight about blacks' pivotal role in the territory of Oklahoma at the turn of the century, specifically about what Oklahoma became for black citizens. Information not documented in the history books.
A black achievement that is not in our history books. And we spent an entire semester on it and studied also what happened and what led up to what it was called then the 1921 Tulsa race riot.
Dick Rowland was accused of assaulting Sarah Page in an elevator at a building in downtown Tulsa. The police quickly responded and arrested Mr. Rowland and transported him to the city jail, where he was booked and questioned. Several blacks in the community received word that a white mob was gathering outside of the jail wanting to lynch Mr. Rowland. Blacks proceeded toward the city jail in an attempt to protect Mr. Rowland from the violent white mob. The mob of whites outside of the courthouse quickly grew to over 2,000 men. As the Tulsa National Guard was mobilized, the Tulsa Department deputized the white men who destroyed, looted, and stole goods from the black-owned businesses and homes. Fire and destruction consumed the 36 blocks of the Greenwood district. Many whites prevented the local fire departments from containing and putting out the fires. Whites also killed men, women, and children as they went throughout the district. Many whites prevented the local fire departments from containing and putting out the fires. Whites from all around looted blacks' properties, homes, and businesses. The famous book recounting the events of the massacre, entitled Events of the Tulsa Disaster, recalls an interview that her family participated in on June 22, 1921, as they recalled the horrific events.
On Tuesday evening, about 9:30 o'clock, I heard the report that they were going to mob a colored boy. but my family and I remained at home. Then we heard firing. I ran for my daughter. Then a man and his family came running by. He said, "The whites have burned my home and over $7,000. His wife had on about one piece of clothing. Then a crowd came and reported that they were burning and killing as they went, meaning the whites were killing and burning. I ran behind a cabinet, but they were crowding us so closely that I ran out to an outhouse where I began to pray."
Last day of school, so it was the penultimate day of school, and they were all excited about it, and it was, the sun is setting late, so they played late into the evening, having no idea what was going on downtown. And so she usually slept at her cousins and Harriet's, and so this night she came home, and to God be the glory, because on the dawn of June 1st is when the aerial attack was implemented and she was bombed.
Because of our location, right on the cusp, dividing line of North and South Tulsa, our church fortunately was not destroyed because the rioters thought that it looked too nice to be a black church, so they bypassed it. Unfortunately, Vernon AME was mostly destroyed with the exception of its basement. Mount Zion Baptist Church was completely destroyed, but there were other churches in the area that experienced some damage as well. But the churches, even without the building, because the church is not the building, continued during that time to offer hope, to offer encouragement to those who were experiencing probably the worst tragedy that has ever been experienced on American soil.
Now you connect the dots as an adult, that she was running from planes that were bombing her, and her fright. She escaped the hands of her parents at 9 years old and ran into a chicken coop. Now the whole thing is caving in on us, and we don't know how to react.
Then the crowd of whites ordered everybody to come out of the house, but they were slow about coming out, so the ruffians shot against the house. I ran further and saw about 15 white men chasing a man who was helpless. They even fired at him, but missed. I then went upon the hill carrying a small bundle of clothes and bedding. I was lost from my daughter and her baby until late in the afternoon Wednesday. I saw about 5 women faint. At the Presbyterian church, I saw about 4 little children who were lost from their mothers. Old and young had to pile onto trucks. And when we were being driven through town, men were seen clapping their hands, rejoicing over our condition.
What thoughts kind of come to mind as you relive that?
It's heartbreaking. When I would learn about this aspect of our family history in 2003, I was devastated. I remember reading the letter that I received, basically informing myself and many others that we were being included in a lawsuit against the city of Tulsa regarding reparations for the survivors and descendants of survivors of the race massacre. And that's how I found out about this aspect of our family history.
The race riot was said that it happened because of Dick Rowland and Sarah Page, that was an elevator operator and a person that was a shoe shine guy. That was not, all the research that I did, that was not the cause of the race riot. The cause of the race riot was that the Klan, Tate Brady and his group, wanted to take Greenwood down because it was such a prosperous area and we had so many black, and that money turned over in the hands of Afro-Americans 7 times before it left the community, and that was an insult to the Caucasians, so they said we must get rid of that. And we had the military, we had judges, lawyers, doctors, people that were of a different color that was part of the KKK. So the Afro-Americans that was trying to fight during that time, they didn't have any way to win because you had bombs dropped on this city by our own government. And how could you win?
The leaders in this state and in this city, they couldn't be proud of being jealous of black people. They couldn't be proud of being envious of black people and their prosperity. And they couldn't be proud of being the only time in history that we know that Americans have bombed other Americans from the air. They couldn't be proud of domestic terrorism that took place 100 years ago, where we had graves that we still can't find today.
The remaining blacks were rounded up by the whites and taken to the convention center. Martial law was in place under Governor James B.A. Robertson. So many blacks lost everything. In 1921 and the years following, there were two sets of minds there. There were white citizens who were horrified by the actions of others. The mob consisted of 1,500 to 2,000 members, the majority connected to the KKK. Many of these members were part of the Tulsa Police Department, members of the Oklahoma National Guard, Chamber of Commerce, and the mayor's office. These individuals wanted to cover this up by blaming this on the black community and calling it a Negro uprising. Then they attempted to destroy any evidence of this even occurring. On the black side, there was this trauma that the KKK did to us. Many blacks felt nothing was done to bring these individuals to justice, and no one was talking to the police about it either. Hence, the development of fear formed of blacks that if they were to get out of line, then the bombings and destruction could easily happen again. More specifically, what black mother at that time wanted to share with their children about how their father or grandfather was brutally murdered during the race riots. With the combination of whites wanting to cover this up and blacks not wanting to discuss it openly, coupled with generations upon generations, we get to the point where the majority of the people are not familiar with the massacre at all.
Black Wall Street in Greenwood was torn down again by highways coming through.
Urban Renewal, they came in and started buying up land and saying that they were going to take people's houses and they were going to provide areas for growth in our community. But at the same time, that's how we lost Greenwood, because what they did is they put a highway through there, Urban Renewal came in, and we lost it.
Howard was destroyed a second time in the 60s by urban renewal and the building of a highway right through the heart of the economic district. And that even though it's had its ups and downs and the flame has flickered, it never went out. And here we are, once again, Greenwood, and the story of Greenwood rising again.
The term urban renewal, many black people call urban removal, is a process that black people feel was a process to cut us out of the economy. You know, after Black Wall Street was rebuilt without insurance, and that's why we changed the name from the 1921 race riot to the 1921 massacre, because we felt we were massacred and that name was given by someone else. But after, and that name caused people to not get insurance claims paid. And so, because that's one of the ways that insurance doesn't have to pay is if it were a riot.
Now they say, well, let's get it back. All we got to do is take the highway. Taking that highway out is not going to change anything because the damage has already been done. So what we need to do is, you can leave the highway there, but take Peoria. That's a street that goes all the way through North Tulsa to South Side, and all of the section in North Tulsa, make that our new Black Wall Street.
I know that my grandparents, my family members, my uncle could never imagine that this time would come when we'd be talking about the race massacre, and no less looking for victims of the race massacre as well. I stand on their shoulders, basically to represent what they could not represent.
Well, I think even though, as you said, there's been a push not to teach some of these things in the public schools, I just think as a community, through lectures, through seminars, through our churches, just through our families, stories and history can continue to be told, and not just the atrocities of the event, but the successes of that generation needs to be told.
To keep the story of Black Wall Street alive, you have places like the Greenwood Rising Black Wall Street History Center, a world-class Smithsonian-style facility that tells the full story. It doesn't just focus on the massacre, it tells the entire story of what incredible history Black citizens had here in Oklahoma, what tragic history Black Americans had in Oklahoma with Greenwood and the massacre, but then that indomitable human spirit that said we shall not be moved, and rebuilt their community from the ground up again without any assistance from those who were complicit in the destruction.
Well, in the words of Martin Luther King, I'm a drum major for justice. I've been fighting even before I knew about the race riot for rights, even at 10 and 12. My project, A Century Walk, is one thing that it kind of got thwarted, but there was an opportunity for the new generation, the current generation, the past, to experience one of the few edifices that are still here today after 100 years.
Current generations and future generations have something to aspire to, knowing that people that look just like them, right, in this very same city, were able to have movie theaters, to be able to have their own businesses, to be entrepreneurs, to educate themselves. I think the glories of that time period need to be told, along with obviously the devastation that took place that brought it to a demise.
Put Black businesses all along there. We can do it with Martin Luther King, that's another street. We can do it with 46th Street, 36th Street. And all of those streets, at any time, if we as Black people came together, we could change the face of North Tulsa by putting those businesses back.
We need to teach our young people about finance, and not just about spending, but how to make money, how to invest, and passing that legacy down to the next generation, not only of businesses, land, but the knowledge about finance. It is a shame that Black people, many young people, understand everybody's name on Atlanta Housewives, Basketball Wives, and Love and Hip Hop. But we don't talk about finance. We don't talk about interest. We don't talk about investments. We don't talk about stocks. We need to do that on purpose. We need to purposefully teach our people about finance, about business, about economics, and create cooperative economics where we spend our money among each other and build our communities back today.
You have so much rich history here that all we have to do is make sure children come here through educational means, through field trips, through parents, white and Black, red and brown, to come here and always remember, always commemorate, always honor, but never forget what happened here, because there's too much here for people to cover up anymore. You have to come here and learn this history.
We will never have Greenwood the same as it was, but we can recreate the Black Wall Street mindset across the country and across our people.